And welcome back in. This is the Thought Vessel. We are returning from the fabulous Las Vegas for our next bracket breakdown. Today we're talking about bracket 4. I'm Levi.
I'm Jacoby.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the Thought Vessel. Welcome to the show. So no special guest today, but I feel like we are more than capable of handling this topic of bracket 4. Before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences with Las Vegas. It was super awesome getting a chance to meet some of you in person. We signed a couple cards, got a chance to do some events. Joe put on an event that went very, very well. Very excited to see that. And we'll talk about what is next for the Thought Vessel. We'll go and talk about very briefly what our favorite highlight from the weekend was, starting with Jacoby.
Favorite highlight of the weekend, outside of saying hi to my group here, getting to meet some of the other content creators, saying hi, getting to journey the con. That's pretty much all there is.
That's a very fair point. When you're walking around a convention as big as MagicCon is, where it's essentially the population of a small town.
Whoa. Small town. There was like 43,000 people there.
I mean, I guess like a small suburban town.
A small suburban town.
Man is out here going, yes, a small town. He is clearly crazy because he's from the Midwest. He should know better.
But what I'm saying, everyone around you has Magic decks and everyone around you loves this game. Probably the same level that you do because you're paying and traveling to go to this thing. It's really cool being around that many like-minded people and just experiencing the vibe. It's awesome. Joe, what was your favorite part of the convention?
Truthfully, it was running my event. I got to have people try a lot of my twists that I do for stream, which then also vaunted me into being a featured creator at MagicCon. Got myself the creator badge and everything. And my first pod, in fact, did the Endless Whispers twist, which was Chef's Kiss. I just hear from that pod, one player goes, "Hey, so you like chaos, right?" And the one player just goes, "Yeah." Cool. Blasphemous Edict. Oh, everybody's just, oh God, why? Creatures going all which ways.
They all die simultaneously, and I guess it goes by priority on where they get handed out.
At the end step, yeah.
That'd be a very interesting dilemma of deciding who gets what and make sure no one gets too many.
Yeah, especially since there was also a jet mirror on one of their boards.
Yeah, that person gets that jet mirror and nothing else. Looking at the convention as a whole, there was a lot of cool things I had an opportunity to do. My highlight, though, is probably getting a chance to try out the new game coming out from Wizards, which was Mood Swings. I had an opportunity to play against Mark Rosewater in the game, so just getting a chance to play against someone who's that iconic in the community in a one-on-one game. See his mind at work and getting a chance to kind of play was just a really cool experience. I didn't think that was something that I would be able to do, whether it was Magic or any other game at any point in my life, just because he is a very, very busy person. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to do that. And I was writing an article about it for Cool Stuff Inc. at the time. I got plenty of material to work off. That article is actually out on Cool Stuff Inc. now if you wanted to take a look at my thoughts as far as the game, how it works, and where I think the future of that's going to be.
It was very sad that they didn't get the product in time because that was the whole point of the event, was for people to just actually play it instead of what we got instead, which was essentially just demoing it.
But it's a very, very fun game. If you're looking for a very, very quick game that you can pick up and play with your friends, every deck's going to be different, very, very fast. Mark and I's games, both of them together, like full rounds, lasted about maybe 10 minutes. Super fun. It's going to be on the Secret Lair on June 1st.
Mood Swings coming out on Pride. Hell yeah.
And on top of that, their claim to fame is that it's simple, easy to grasp, very quick to pick up, quick to play. And there's a lot of pretty art that's represented from other places. But it's so cool.
It's a kind of a fun mini game for Magic players too, because they use a lot of sketches and concept art from actual Magic cards, kind of seeing what cards might have been used for what decks. Embarrassment was the artwork, I believe, for Sugarcoat, the little rabbit cookie popping out of like the clothes or whatever. You definitely enjoy it.
Not my gumdrop buttons.
Let's go ahead and hop into bracket 4, because that is the topic that you have clicked on today, and we're going to go and jump in. For the official standing on bracket 4 as it stands right now, optimized. Players expect decks to be lethal, consistent, and fast, designed to take people down as fast as possible. They do not adhere to the cEDH metagame, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Win conditions vary from archetype to archetype, but can end the game quickly and suddenly. Gameplay to be explosive and powerful, featuring huge threats and efficient disruptions to matches. To play at least 4 turns before anyone wins or loses. There are no deck restrictions. Looking at that from a positive perspective, this is total freedom. A format in which you can do stacks, you can do mass land destruction, you can do very, very quick, disgusting Voltron things, you can do combos. Everything's on the table. You don't have to worry about, like, oh, what is the pod going to think about this or that? You can play anything you want. I'm just going to play all the disgusting things. And that can be very, very fun. Sometimes it's kind of nice to get into a battle in which everybody has superpowers and you're just smacking each other around like you're the Avengers taking on each other in the middle of Manhattan. There's typically no feel bads at the table because everyone kind of knows what they're signing up for. You can get stacks. You can have combos. You can get hard removed or locked in some way. Everything of those are very, very possible and viable to occur. And that's totally fine. These games can be quicker, so it's a lot easier to get multiple rounds in. You're not going to see very many like 1.5, 2 hour type of bracket 4 games because everyone has the ability to kind of win out of nowhere. And there's a lot less yapping than there would be at like cEDH. There's not really anyone like trying to go for draws or anything. The biggest good that we have, this is kind of where a lot of commanders get to find their home. They're kind of in the bracket 4 jail where they're not really bad enough to be brought down to bracket 3 or bracket 2. Your VVs and your Urza, Narset, Enlightened Master, very, very strong, very, very powerful type of cards. They may or may not be cEDH viable. It gives them an opportunity to go into a space where they can do all their powerful, disgusting things, looking at you, Joda, and still have an opportunity to play and be enjoyed without going in and terrorizing other brackets.
I definitely loved building and talked about on the podcast before Geared Mirror of the Wilds, which was in fact just that build your own Kiki Jiki list. Man, did that list just go when you kept making treasures after treasures after treasures from all of the creatures that you put out. And then you suddenly on turn 4 had 7 creatures that all did powerful things.
You have the ability to kind of tailor your deck to what you expect to see. Bracket 5 is a lot more, I'm looking up deck lists to figure out what kind of win conditions I need to be prepared for in a tournament. Bracket 4 is more of a, well, what do I do if someone plays Blood Moon? What do I do if somebody has Mass Land Destruction? What do I do if someone is going to try to combo on an early turn? Kind of gives some different hypothetical scenarios, and you have to find an answer for them in your deck. Oh, I've got to figure out a way to beat a turn 1 Ad Nauseam or a turn 1 Thassa's Oracle.
And this is also something where we currently have this running theme of commanders that people consider extraordinarily strong. Characters like Toph, the first metal bender that got released not that long ago. Y'shtola is another example of something that's not quite something trapped in bracket 4. You can still barely do lower brackets just because it cares about a certain CMC. But the more cards we possibly get that power up those commanders that make it too easy to trip up and just be stronger, the more likely some of these commanders hit that kind of jail point. It's interesting dilemma, really.
Let's talk about Toph here, because I think Toph is a good example of, it's not strictly in bracket 4 jail, but what it really wants to do is bracket 4 things. When you look at some popular cards with Toph, you have Mind Slaver loops and stuff like that. Combos and locks that are very, very easy for Toph to do that aren't necessarily something that you're going to want to do in bracket 3, but there's an opportunity to do something like that in bracket 4 or higher. It fits more organically in that spot.
Toph also has its foot into bracket 5 as well. A lot of people who do Candelabra loops with it and Cradle specifically. But you can also still see that same kind of strength in bracket 4 without it necessarily winning tournaments.
Looking at a lot of the positive here, it's my favorite bracket of the 5 right now because there's a lot of fun stuff you can do.
What? I could have never guessed.
It's where my pet deck, Brago, stays because I'm at a point that I've been optimizing and tweaking the deck for so long. I just don't want to make it any weaker than what it currently is. It's just going to stay at bracket 4 and do its thing.
I will say some of the commanders that couldn't be played necessarily in bracket 5 or bracket 3, what have you, do shine when you actually have the mentality to build in bracket 4. There are so many people that try to make Hashaton into a cEDH deck. I felt that it absolutely shined if you just stuck to bracket 4 and just played really strong things.
The problem with Hashaton is trying to make bad cards viable instead of just making good cards great. cEDH gives a lot of times good card greats, with a few exceptions like Magda. You have just a strong community around it that's pushing it to its limits. There are cEDH Brago lists out there where you're using stasis and you're just blinking your own stuff, so you're not really affected by not having an untap step. But it's not something that I would be comfortable taking to a tournament, let alone a cEDH pod, and be like, I can win with this. That's a big ask in cEDH without even somebody winning on top of you. Let's shift to the bad, because this bracket is far from perfect. The first one is that we have the term for the very first time coming up in Commander, and that is viability. Before this bracket, you can kind of play whatever you want, whenever you want, does not matter. Because you have a more competitive element, there are certain commanders that may or may not be effective at this bracket. You can absolutely play them, but if you're going in with an expectation to win, there's some commanders that probably aren't going to help you out with that very much and may just need to be or more organic towards the 3 and 2 range. There can be a little bit of a gatekeepy side to bracket 4.
Truthfully, gatekeepy on both sides, because the viability can just happen when you are in bracket 5. They're saying, well, that's not tournament viable. Go play in your bracket 4.
The viability of some bracket 5 decks getting pushed down to bracket 4 is a big problem that we do have. It's an example of a card that I love but would not survive very well. If you wanted to run Miles, Tails, Prower, you love Sonic, Tails was your favorite character, flash flying, whenever vehicle control enters, draw a card if it has flying, otherwise put a flying counter on it. Probably not going to help you against infinite turn loop Narset. You can just run a bunch of removal spells, but it's not really going to help you get to where you want to go, as it's not inherently powerful or doesn't really have any loops that you can really set up to break to that next level. Another part of it too, power level can vary at different regions. What is considered a super powerful deck in your local game store in a small town may be a bracket 2 or a bracket 3 in like a city local game store, or if you go online. If you're playing your Lord of the Rings human typal precon deck and you're winning every single game and no one has an answer to stop it, you may be under the impression that it's bracket 4, even though it is very much a precon. A big component of this too is price. This is where you're getting less pet cards and more just universally good cards. Universally good cards are more expensive because they can go in a lot of decks. They're in high demand. People like doing broken stuff in Commander. They will pay extra to have broken stuff for their Commander decks. These cards are more expensive, so unless you're proxying them, you're going to see higher price totals on some of these decks. These are decks that are $1,000 plus is typically how it ends up going. Even without getting into OG duels and stuff like that, they can go up to incredible price ranges.
Another big factor if you didn't include OG duels, because I think you don't need them in bracket 4. Some people either agree or disagree.
I don't think you need them, period. But if you got them or you're proxying them, sure. I don't think it really moves the needle on your deck too much.
This is where your triomes, your fetch lands, back when they were a bit more expensive, your shock lands, your opponent lands tend to be in this bracket more than any other bracket. You go from a land base that's maybe a $5 land here, a $2 land here, maybe all basics, to suddenly like a lot of $20, $30, $40 lands.
And that adds up fast. That adds up real fast.
Because your land base should be about 40 cards in your deck.
And specifically, you'll also start getting to that kind of cEDH land base of the 33 cards and sometimes even lower, maybe one tap land, if that. And typically, the ones that they're going to still be going for are the surveil lands.
This is definitely where you see your more supported, interesting land bases. You could do toolkits as long as they're not focused on it. But this bracket tends to be where it can be an afterthought, and it's just a really strong afterthought period. You're already trying to diversify your mana base outside of basics anyways. It just is inherently one of those things you kind of rip and grip and call it a day.
A good example would be my Narset Enlightened Masters list. It's not necessarily extra turns. You could very much make an argument that it should be. It's a Planeswalker list. Casting Narset, just trying to get a bunch of Planeswalkers in the field, more than he can attack into, use some of the removal effects. Typically trying to win with something like a Chain Veil Loop. The deck itself is running 36 lands. It has a lot of MDFCs because I want Narset to flip it and cast spells. MDFCs that have a instant sorcery on the front side, cast it, and then not have to worry necessarily about the backside, or I can play a land if I'm just in a pinch. This deck is incredibly aggressive. It is fast as it can be. If I tried to pick up the entire deck, didn't proxy anything, it'd be close to $5,000. The deck is just very, very expensive because of the quality of cards that I'm trying to run in it. That can be very, very daunting. That's kind of the third point here for the bad. This is not a beginner-friendly format. This is if you make a mistake, it can cost you the whole game. You have to be paying attention constantly because the windows of interaction and opportunity are going to be very, very narrow. It's a speak now or forever hold your peace kind of a format.
And it's not even just narrow. Sometimes they're not immediately recognizable that they're the lines to win either. Unlike cEDH, where a lot of those lines have already kind of been tampered into the meta, so you know what that's going to be like, Bracket 4 has a lot more muddier lines you can't immediately recognize. Because of how freeing the power format is, this could just be infinite combats. This could be, I'm going to do this weird loop with this creature that isn't viable in cEDH, but certainly can work here. Rocks fall, everyone dies.
Yeah, and everything looks fine. And then Joda casts one legendary creature and then gets another and then casts another one. Everyone's got haste and trample, 40 combat damage before you know what's happening. These decks can scale and get out of hand incredibly fast because you don't have the opportunity to kind of learn and understand what's going on. And then you have a couple turns to have the table try to deal with it. The games can end like that. You have no say as far as like when that's going to happen. At the peak of Bracket 4, this is very, very hard. Even on top of that, the ugly part of Bracket 4, the line of what is at the bottom end and at the top end of Bracket 4 is incredibly long. This isn't quite at Bracket 3, I need to move it up. And this isn't quite in the cEDH range, I need to put it down. Those two decks should not be in the same bracket. You almost have to train up your deck to get it into the Bracket 4 viability. It is a very hard entry point.
We likely do just need to start expanding the brackets, maybe just a little bit more. But at that point, you're still trying to figure out where is that kind of defined line. If Bracket 3 was the valley of Commander, this is the desert of Commander. Then you have cEDH as that nice little oasis because, oh, hey, everybody's drinking good because they're doing the strong thing. But then you have all of that desert of, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so thirsty.
This is also the breeding ground of a lot of really weird niche combos. Lavinia, Azorius Renegade, and Omen Machine. That's not going to happen in cEDH, but shutting down everyone's ability to cast spells, you're not doing that at like Bracket 3 or Bracket 2. Putting that against a Brago Stronic Resonator line list is probably not going to get anything done. It's hard to have, I'm trying to do this weird obscure combo that I can't really do in cEDH, but my table would get mad at me if I do in Bracket 3. And then I'm playing an outdated cEDH commander that isn't viable anymore, so I'm pushing it down to Bracket 4 in the same table and have a fun time.
It's the only legal place you can find rules as written or vibes as checked, whatever you want to call it, for land destruction. Really awkward for certain decks, stuff like Yuma that really care about the land destruction in a more progressive way. It puts that deck in this awkward scenario where the land destruction is not actually strong enough with what's going on to be Bracket 4 material. It's not a combo. It's not ending the game right there unless you have haste. And even then, if that's hoping to also have no board and you have a big enough board, got to have a bunch of extra steps that are not necessarily like always going to come to fruition because they're interactable pieces. You can't immediately guarantee the Armageddon with a protection spell or a board wipe with a protection spell, assuming and hoping and praying that no one has enough interaction. Is kind of just unrealistic.
It's definitely a rough spot.
Mass land destruction is only in Bracket 4 based mostly on vibes, which is reasonable, but also like it's a tough spot to be in.
Kind of a later evolution into the power level is we had a graph of power versus tolerance. okay, this is a tolerant low power deck or an intolerant low power deck where it's low power, but we're playing some stacks effects. Is everyone cool with that? I felt like it handled the delineation between power and just rude cards a little bit better versus they're kind of lumped together in the same equation. Armageddon, very rude card. There are scenarios in which it would make sense to run Armageddon in like a pre-con power level kind of deck. That's a conversation you definitely want to have rule zero with your table to make sure everyone's fine with it and on the same page. But when you lock away certain things and they're not quite good enough to handle with a lot of the craziness that's going on, you kind of almost condemn them to not being played at all. It can be a very, very rough spot to be. I don't think I've seen a Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth at a table since I took mine apart a couple of years ago, which I was doing like Grand Arbiter Augustin Planeswalkers because I could make them cheaper and I get them out a lot faster.
Well, that's because it's a bastard card for bastards, and you are bastard flavored.
Bastard flavored is crazy.
What is a bastard flavor?
Grand Arbiter Augustin.
You. I literally just said you. It's a bastard card for bastard people, and you are bastard flavored. You were the bastard flavor.
It's a fantastic card, and I'll keep cloning it if you keep talking shit. It's kind of like when someone says, this ice cream tastes like crap, and you're like, how do you know what crap tastes like? It's the same energy right now.
Fear not, I will not fall for your semantical garbage.
Well, back to the point at hand, there is definitely room for a bracket between these two. If you came out with a bracket looking at the game changer list right now, and if you just said, we're still trying to be lethal, we're still trying to be cutthroat, but instead of it has to go at least 4 turns, just go back to the upgraded, it has to be 6 turns, push the game changers, because I think a lot of people like using game changers. That's a space that needs to be explored. Where you can use your game changers, you can use some of these more shunned type of brackets, but we're not quite good enough to be in cEDH yet, or we just got grounded from cEDH, so we had to go back down. It's kind of in the in-between, but you can do some more spicy stuff, stacks and combo and other things in that bracket. I think that'd be very, very popular.
I think we need either a bracket that is for the lower part of 4, or we need to not be the wild, wild west.
That desert. We need more wells in that desert, please.
So either we transition between 3 and 4, or we cut off the top half of bracket 4 and leave them to themselves. Either way, we need to split that up a little bit because it's a little too deep.
¿Por qué no los dos?
So you want to go to 7 brackets?
We could do that. And then all the cEDH people could just say, my deck's about a 7.
No.
Stop it. Talking back on your example of the cEDH deck, the problem with bracket 4 is the amount of people that have a cEDH deck that is just no longer viable in the format. These are kind of some of your old school cEDH commanders. So this might have been back in the day, like Atraxa, or a better example of this would be Sharoon, the Hegemon.
The back of the day of Atraxa, that was like a year or 2 ago.
I'm talking Atraxa Praetor's Voice, like proliferate.
You got to be very clear on which Atraxa.
The 2016 Atraxa, the number 4 most popular commander now, or did she get bumped again?
She is number 3.
Number 3. So not quite yet number 4, but Y'shtola's coming real fast.
You stole her, my beloved.
The Reaper Y'shtola coming to each of those commanders' doors.
Yeah, she's coming one by one. She'll be at number 1 before long. What's going to happen, though, is we're going to get to the Hobbit, and Smog's going to come out, and it's going to be so good that every Dragon deck's going to put it in their Dragon decks. It's going to pump up her Dragon's numbers again.
What? Dragons keep getting printed? Who would have thought?
From the company that brought you Dungeons & Dragons? Crazy.
Never would have guessed it.
But also, bring us more dungeons. Sharoom the Hegemon enters battlefield, return target artifact or creature from graveyard to your battlefield. This was just bringing back an artifact clone and then just looping back and forth. There was aggressive cEDH decks that were using that, or it might be a Narset or something where you had basically a cEDH list that just isn't going to win. Well, I'm not going to do anything to change this, and I'm just going to throw it down to bracket 4 and they can deal with it. That isn't necessarily good because you're still building a deck that's tailored for the cEDH meta. You're not building it in a way that is more designed and tailored for this thing. If you have a commander deck that has 30 lands, 28 lands, that's probably just a cEDH deck, or you've made a terrible mistake. One of the two. Could be both. Having that being where it is, I think it can be putting you in a very, very awkward position. It's a little bit too strong for what you're trying to do, and you might need to just adjust things a little bit less on the mana rocks and acceleration, add a little bit more lands, maybe a little bit more card draws. Be a bit more consistent. You don't have to be as aggressive with your mulligans because you're going to have a little bit more time than you would in cEDH. You're supposed to at least make it to turn 4 before trying to win, but without having going totally insane. An example of what bracket 4 deck that can be, and exceptions to the rule on the turn count wins, is Planeswalker Texas Ranger, which is my Alexios Daimos of Cosmos deck. We talked about this before on the show. It's my card that is signed by Chuck Norris. I've had Magical Christmas Land in which the deck is won on like turn 2, where I was able to get a Jeska's Will and then put Alexios on the field, Jeska, to triple his damage output. That was just enough to mathematically clear the board at that point. As scary as Alexios can be, the deck is not a cEDH. It is very susceptible to removal. The deck is designed to try to win as early as possible because the later the game goes, the more awkward it gets. The biggest way to kill Alexios is just to have 5 toughness of blockers. It's not going to do anything because everyone's going to keep swinging at that one player, going to run into a buzzsaw.
Going to a different deck example that kind of fell out of cEDH, though I probably should try to rework it and do it again. The Ratadrabic Nazgul list that I had. I literally was just trying to loop the Nazgul to mill out my opponents. There was one where I believe it was the blasting station that could just damage the opponents to death. And that wasn't necessarily, quote unquote, viable for cEDH. And the brackets didn't exist at the time when I had played a higher power game. It didn't necessarily hang there either because it won way too fast.
It is definitely a weird spot to be. It's kind of a combination of people just like not wanting the smoke of cEDH or giving out too much smoke in bracket 3 and having those people come together. And it's just not really aligned with expectations. At some point, I'm hoping we'll see a division of the bracket, but it may take a while for that to come to fruition. There's something between, kind of feels like Will Ferrell and Elf on the escalator. He steps and then his legs are stretching out, trying to get between the two. There's a lot of decks that are in those 8 flights of stairs that he's got between his legs at that point. A well-tuned Aminatu, the Fate Shifter deck, I don't think it's going to be at cEDH, but I wouldn't put it at bracket 3.
Especially with the blinking of the Felidar Guardian.
Or the blinking of Gilded Drake. It's another target permanent you own. It's not you control. Final thoughts. Probably the most divisive bracket, but in my opinion, one of the most fun.
Final thoughts. Bracket 4 is definitely that desert. It does still have some pockets of water where you are either really understanding that you're just trying to go to bracket 5 with your very strong deck, or you find a pod that is on that same wavelength of bracket 4 where everybody gets to do the strong thing. Definitely have played a lot of bracket 4 with Joe Johnson, and by God, those decks. They typically still kind of win on turn 3 if Joe gets the cards. Seeing the pre-con Cloud and Tifa immediately beaten face each game. Strong.
Don't let Joe get the cards. That's what I heard.
Tifa goes crazy.
Yes, however, if you don't let Joe get the cards, the swingies will come at you first.
You remove the swingies.
There's always more swingies.
There's always more removal.
Levi's out here like, don't you ever say the forbidden text to me. There's always more removal. Get out of my face. Never say the forbidden text to me.
There's always more removal, the Azorius way. Fatehold should put that as their school slogan. There's always more removal.
Super cop-coded.
Big apologies in advance for my unhealthy hyperfixation of Fatehold whenever it comes out. I'm not going to be cool about it. It's going to be everywhere. Just letting y'all know. That is all the time we have. I have been Levi.
I'm Jacoby.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Thought Vessel. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on when you're listening in. Goodbye.
Take care.
All right, so here's my idea for the new bracket. We call it Bracket Slevin.
I cast Armageddon. Rocks fall, everyone dies.
Did you say Slevin?